Welcome to another episode of Data Analytics Chat. I'm Ben Parker, data recruiter and podcast host, looking to share knowledge and insights for listeners. Today, I'm excited to welcome Mark Brady, Deputy Chief Data Officer at KBR. In today's episode, we'll explore his career journey, how he got started, pivotal moments that shaped his career, and also look into the hot topic in security in AI. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ben. Good to be with you.
Looking forward to this conversation. So I guess, do you want to start off with sharing your career journey for our listeners and what interests you in the field, that sort of thing?
Well, really, I just kind of fell into it because originally I was working in the area of science, physics, mathematics, and employed in industrial research and development. But part of that work had to do with artificial intelligence. So got into neuroscience as it's related to artificial intelligence, did some research there, and then segued into the government because, after all, the universities are funded by the government anyway, so might as well cut out the middleman. And it was working in government when I got into data full time. So first as an analyst for NOAA, and based on that work, then the Department of Justice, and then a position opened up with Air Force Space Command. That was prior to the existence of the Space Force, and was CDO there. And then when the Space Force was set up, then segued into that as Chief Data Officer for the Space Force. So just happened to have a knack for data science. So things took off from there.
No, I mean, a lot of people fall into work. This, because you progressed up the ladder. I mean, did you want to be, what was it, a desire to be working leadership when you were younger?
No, not at all. When I was younger, my ambition was to become a physical scientist. And so this is just something that evolved somehow based on the demand and based on what came easiest to me.
So, and was it just like general progression then into sort of leadership field?
Yeah, there's kind of a void, and I think there still is to a large degree. People are not quite sure what to do with data and how to maximize it and drive their mission success with it. And so if you can answer those questions, then you just get sucked into the field.
Interesting. And were there key moments that shaped your career path?
Well, I think the first key moment was working as an analyst for NOAA and National Marine Fisheries Service in particular. So National Marine Fisheries Service is pretty much the O in NOAA. And in that role, I could see the customers who were marine biologists and what questions they were asking. Well, we also had customers, state government, federal government, the White House, and so forth. And then you could also see the data systems and how those were working and sometimes not working. And so if you're paying attention to all that, you really get an idea in terms of what data management should be in the state of the art of what it actually is, which even today is still in a very, very early state. I would say that data science today is not really data science. It's more like data alchemy. But real data science, it's out there. So anyway, based on that work, even though as an analyst, I started redesigning some of their data systems. And so then was promoted to information architect for all of National Marine Fisheries, got involved in the NOAA level data strategy, supported the development of their strategy, got on the Big Data Partnership Council, which involved the various tech giants in the Department of Commerce. And so based on that work, was asked to join Department of Justice because the CTO and the CIO for NOAA were migrating over to Justice. So came over there and repeated the process of establishing their first data management program.
It's just interesting how the world of data is going. So now it's like data science now is obviously you've got a lot of coding. You've got a lot of the tools now that can do it for you. I think now it's probably going back to actually applying the theory, like the more mathematical elements to it. It's going to make you stand out. So many different models out there that people can use, but people get sucked into all the new shiny toys on the market.
I think the models that are commonly used today, like the data life cycle, don't have any connection to reality in the sense that that isn't how we really manage data, and it's not how we should be managing data. And yet you see these all the time in data strategies for various organizations. And some of the early ideas as to how we should manage data, like the original idea for a data warehouse, didn't make any sense either. So one of the primary principles of data management is to integrate data and see data in the context of other data. So the original idea in a data warehouse was to separate out transactional data from what they called analytical data, which didn't make any sense because you're violating that first principle for one thing. And for another thing, who's to say that transactional data can't be analyzed, that it's not analytical data? So kind of like Freudian psychology, which is not predictive, comes up with a theory, not really based on observations or being able to accomplish anything. There it stood. So, anyway, in real data science, you have to start by understanding how it is that data can really affect your success or failure as an organization, because otherwise, why are we doing it? And secondly, you have to understand that there's not just knowing and not knowing, there's really four levels of knowing. And the objective of data science is to apply best practices and get you to level 4.
Then, so throughout your career, have you faced a major career setback? And I guess what did you learn from it?
I think the hardest thing in this field isn't the technology. Obviously, you have to know real data science, which isn't that well known. But if you talk to chief data officers and you ask them what the greatest challenges are, really they're cultural change. And the reason why that's so challenging is because, as they say, knowledge is power. And that's a paraphrase from Sir Francis Bacon many years ago. And there's two sides to that coin. One is that if knowledge is power, then you can harness that for the organization to be more successful. But on the other hand, individuals and units within an organization may want to withhold data, and traditionally this is done in order to achieve so-called job security. But really, we need to turn that around 180 degrees so that your job security is based on how much you share data, not how much you hoard or withhold it. And there's two types of data that I'm talking about here. One is the actual data itself, but the other is information about the design of your data systems. So typically, this is withheld either by a company that's developing data systems for your organization, a vendor, or internal developers. So what you end up with is a lot of black boxes. And those black boxes, you can't see into them. They're not terribly valuable, and they're very difficult to make interoperable. So all these boxes, processing, storing data, and so forth, you need to connect them into kind of a system of systems, a super system. And to do that and make any sense out of it at all, you can't do it with the blindfold on. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge that you're going to find, in which I have found in organizations that I've worked with, some of them anyway.
So it's more individuals within the business not sharing the appropriate information, data.
Yeah, kind of doling it out in little spoonfuls when really it could be shared by the bucket load. So in particular, what you see in a data system, say you have a simple data system, just a database with a user interface on it. So the way that's usually done is the analysts aren't allowed to see the underlying schema, which is the design of the database. And that design is really the foundation or the way that an analyst is enabled to make queries on it. If you don't know what the structure is, then all you're left with is a bunch of canned queries that the system developer has allowed you to do. So it's a matter of going from dozens or just a handful of different canned queries. Maybe you can change the dates or some minor manipulation on it, but you can't really develop your own queries to really thousands. So when I was an analyst, we did have that access, and we would do different analyses every day, day after day, for years on end, a whole team of analysts. And you're never going to do that with one of these systems that has this filter on it that doesn't let you see inside.
It's interesting to hear, and obviously you want to, you want to be as transparent as possible. Just going to obviously guarantee, well not guarantee, but it's going to be more likely to be successful and obviously progress in your uh, initiatives.
Yeah, transparency is the key. Transparency is super important.
Then I guess obviously like you've had a successful career today, progressed to obviously senior level. What skills, traits have helped you stand out in the field and to progress?
I'd say the ability to think analytically. When I'm hiring people, I don't really expect to find a ready-made data scientist on the street. And there's a lot of confusion about even what that is. So, data scientist, people who are called data scientists might be programmers, they might be analysts, they might be other things. But really, everything that goes on upstream of the analysis and the programming is what the data scientist does. And they do analytics too. So I think what makes a person successful is being able to think analytically and being able to learn real data science.
I think that definitely the willingness to learn is, I mean, it's so much involvement, isn't there, in the field, and you need to just be able to move with it and apply the theory into the practical world, into work, any domain, wherever the domain you're working in. Or you're not going to be able to get to. If you understand the business, you're going to be able to solve problems easier, and that's what we want to do, really, to progress.
Yeah. I think the ability to learn and adapt is underemphasized in hiring. So when you see job announcements, very often you'll see very specifics. Okay, did you work with this application and that application? Do you have experience in healthcare, finance, whatever? This is really irrelevant. It's almost irrelevant. What you really want is a person who can come in. In fact, I've seen people who have no subject matter expertise in the organization. Personally, I've worked in for industry, different types of industry, automotive, chemical materials, DNA fingerprinting, academia, natural resource management, law enforcement, law, space. It doesn't make any difference. The only difference between any of these things is the data models. And if you've got a good candidate, they're going to learn those data models very quickly. So I think HR really needs to get away from this specific knowledge. You take a look at your candidate and say, look at all the different things they did. So say you're hiring a software developer. Do you want them to know one language that they're going to be programming in? No, because tomorrow they're going to be programming in some other language for you. So you want to see that they're programmed in a number of different languages.
I think it's obviously I work in hiring, so it's all. I know obviously business struggles. So I guess it's a lot. A lot of it is just a tick box. Yeah, he's got cloud. Yes, he's got Python. I think a lot more needs to be dug into actually like people's drive and passion and things like that because if you got someone that's working in any industry, they've got a passion for that industry, they're gonna just love it. Like it's just they're gonna want to do it, go for it. And you've got people that have got that like growth mindset. They want to keep learning, keep progressing. It all comes down to personalities. Like you need to dig into people's like attitudes, in my opinion, because obviously you have people that are so career driven, they want to succeed. But you have these others that they're just happy. Everyone's got different like needs in their life. Just digging out, getting into them to find out what they want, and then obviously see whether that's going to apply into your team. Because like, obviously building a team is you need a blend of different skills, don't you?
Yeah, and you need to have, as you say, you need to have a passion or a desire to really excel, to really have a service-oriented mentality, right? So we talked before about data hoarding versus data sharing. So does the person look at success only in terms of themselves, or do they look at it only in terms of their smallest unit that they're in, or do they look at it in terms of all the different sub-organizations within their company and how those are all serving each other and how they're serving their ultimate customer outside the organization? So that's an important attitude, and innate ability, of course, is important too. And so you do look at their experience, not in terms of the specifics necessarily, but in the general area. So if you're hiring a data scientist, for instance, you want them to have experience in data, not necessarily your data. In fact, you might have an advantage hiring them from another area because they come in with a fresh set of eyeballs. And I've seen over and over people come in from another area and they solve problems that have been unsolved for a decade or more.
Definitely. I guess it also depends on how the team's built up. Whether you need the relevant domain expertise, or when you do get people that do seem to just jump different industries quite easily, pick things up. And there's others. Again, it comes to just down to personal interests. Like if you're one of them people, type of people that are quite, I guess, yeah, one of quite quick learner, because you're going to bring more different projects. Going back to like knowledge again, the more knowledge you've got, the more you can apply it. And it's going to be able to,
Yeah.
it's a different data problem every time, isn't it, really? And if you've got
Mhm.
different skill sets in your locker, you're going to be able to apply that knowledge.
Yeah, and as you say, you need a mix, right? So I'm not saying
Yeah.
you need to have zero subject matter expertise for your particular organization. Obviously, you have to have that, and you have to have the depth of it, and so people can go and ask questions and so forth. But you need to have those very adaptable people and those people that have been in the area for a long time.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, cool. So let's dig into the sort of data topic. So we're going to look into sort of AI and security. So I guess with AI systems as they evolve, what do you see as specific security threats that are becoming more prominent, and why should we care more now than ever?
Well, where we're at right now with that is there's been a lot of talk, a lot of work on ethical AI and things like that, that the AI might have some bias or something. I don't think this is really where we need to be focused right now. Obviously, any entity, whether it's a person or an AI, if it's acting or processing based on the data that it's been exposed to, it's going to obviously have an impact on what its opinion is, so to speak. The real issue hasn't hasn't really emerged yet. We're not really in any danger, but people are looking ahead and saying, okay, AI can be dangerous in the future, but not much has been said about what we're going to do about it, with the exception of some people suggesting maybe there should be a pause or there should be some regulation around it. And Elon Musk has been one of those who has made both those statements. And he's been right about a lot of things. On that, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of impact by either of those. And obviously, you can't take a pause. Whoever takes a pause is just going to get left behind because other countries, other organizations, other individuals, they're going ahead full speed ahead. So, um, Doesn't make any sense to take a pause. So what can you do? Well, there are things that you can do, and so I think we need to look at the 6 laws of safe AI. So these laws deal with things like AI objective functions. So just like humans have emotions that motivate them to do certain things, AI shares that in the sense that they have these objective functions. They're trying to do something. They're optimizing some function, trying to find a maximum or a minimum in that. And there are safety objective functions. You don't see them very much in AI currently, although they were first suggested by Asimov back in the. He was very prophetic about this whole thing. And so an AI safety objective function would be something like an AI, or in his case, he said a robot, would never do harm to a person. So you need to have those sorts of things in your AI, especially as it gets more powerful when it has direct connections to the physical world. So as long as the AI is in its box and it's going through a person to have any effect, then you have that safety valve. But once it's acting directly, and in some cases they do act directly on, controlling utilities and things like that. And then you have a hierarchy of these objective functions. You've got a main objective function, and then you've got objectives that are subordinate to that, and so forth. And so your safety objective functions have to be primary above everything else. And then there are other laws which deal with AI evolution. So by AI evolution, I don't mean it in the figurative sense where you have humans developing more and more sophisticated AI. I mean real evolution, such as in biological evolution, which you have whenever you have AI creating other AIs that might be a little bit different from themselves, and so that they can become something different over time. And already we have AI that writes software. That software could be AI. So it's not very far off that you're going to start to see AI evolution. And so when it starts to evolve, you have to have certain laws around that. By laws, I don't mean laws on the books. I mean laws as in a law of physics, that sort of thing, a best practice. So, for instance, an AI which creates another AI has to pass on to it its safety objective functions. And it also shouldn't have any objective such as maximizing its reproduction or its acquisition of resources. Because if you look at biology, organisms compete with one another based on those two objectives, maximizing their numbers and maximizing resource acquisition. So you can't allow them to have an objective like that, because that in turn causes competition, and likely competition with human beings.
No, definitely interesting times ahead. I mean, I think this people probably don't realise what sort of period we're going through. 'Cause it is transformational, isn't it? Like this is a lot is happening, and a lot more will happen. You look at things, the adoption, AI adoption, like it's, I mean, look at Gen AI, how many apps and use cases there are nowadays. It's just, and things are getting quicker, faster. So yeah, like you said, the security needs to be there because you need to protect people, don't you? Businesses. So it needs to be put in place.
Yeah, I think economically, AI is really going to cause a lot of upheaval. I don't have any suggestions or recommendations as to how you're going to deal with that. And we don't even understand economics very well in the usual sense. And you start to add AI to that and have it do more and more for people, then who knows what the solution really is there? Who's going to own the AI that is producing everything and carrying out all the various functions? And how will wealth be distributed then? So, in the capitalist system today, there's an important component of labor having value. And already we're starting to see problems with that, with cheap labor overseas, especially in China. That's an area which is highlighted right now very much, and it's very disruptive. So I think AI will be disruptive in a similar way.
Then, what's some of the, like, I guess, most realistic dangers you see today with AI misuse?
What do I see in terms of AI issues?
Yeah, most realistic, like, dangers, like with the AI
The
misuse
most
today.
realistic. Well, I mean, a lack of understanding of the six laws, of course, and then of course people will immediately say, all right, well, if you have these laws which are best practices, then who's to say people will follow them, right? So that presents the next level of concern. Obviously, I'm not so naive as to think that you put together some best practices that are going to keep AI safe and then it's automatically going to be safe, for two reasons. One, just out of carelessness or lack of knowledge, people might create dangerous AIs. The other reason they might create dangerous AIs is on purpose. And I'm not talking about military. Obviously, that's dangerous AI in a way, but dangerous is subjective, right? So who is in danger? Anyway, so what do you do about that? Well, what you do about that is we have to have defensive AI. So AI is getting smarter and smarter. In some regards, it's already more intelligent than humans and less intelligent than humans in other ways. But eventually, it becomes more intelligent than humans in all ways. And in that case, we're going to need AI to help defend against other AI. So this is something I call defensive AI. So we'll need to develop defensive AI to help us to keep the dangerous AI in check.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, this obviously it's good, and it's always going to be bad in the world. Just, unfortunately, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. But you have to have I think you have to have a plan, right? You don't want to
Yeah,
just
yeah,
sit back passively and say, well, AI is going to kill us all. So we'll just wait for that to happen.
yeah, no, definitely need to know. What I guess what practical steps can organisations take then today to secure their AI systems across the life cycle?
Well, I think they need to see how it's is advancing, right? So, like I said before, we're not at a point right now where AI is dangerous. It's not. It doesn't have that capability right now. But once it has actuators, once it's out in the physical world more, and in the military, it is out there. But when you have robotics become very common, you see household and manufacturing robots, and by manufacturing robots, I don't mean this automated machines that are just carrying out repetitive activities, but truly intelligent ones that do the sorts of things that humans do. Then I think you need to start making sure that you're attending to objective functions and you're also being very careful if you're developing about AI evolution. But it has to do with you know recognizing the presence of a hazard or not. You don't want to be wasting a lot of energy if your AI is in the box and it doesn't have any ability to actually act on the physical world.
Security in AI is it more media, I guess, generate more stories? Or do you think it will get to a stage where AI, yeah, is a real threat?
Well, yeah, it will get to a stage where it's a real threat,
Mm.
absolutely. So if you look at how things have developed in the area of cyber security or lack thereof, I think that's a good model for what's going to be happening with AI. But we haven't really done a very good job with cyber, and so that's cautionary tale for us. So we don't have any foolproof way to make anything cyber secure. We have some basic practices, but it's kind of like putting on a series of band-aids for things that things still get broken into. And if you compare that to something like cryptography, in cryptography, you have codes that are completely unbreakable. You take something like a one-time pad, for instance. You can't break it. You could have quantum computing, whatever. It's unbreakable. You need that sort of thing in cybersecurity, but it seems like we haven't really tried.
Maybe that's the solution then.
The solution is you have to try.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. You
You
got to
have
learn
to
from
have,
mistakes, isn't it?
yeah, you have to be more ambitious, right? To just say, oh, well, we put this band-aid on it. That worked for a while. Then we had a cybersecurity catastrophe, put another band-aid on. That isn't good enough. So, but I think that in the case of AI, there will be, we want to have some foolproof practices. I think the six laws are that cases where things sneak past people just because you can't see everything that's going on. And, getting back to that visibility thing, computing, even today, even without AI, we don't understand our computing systems. So if you think about when you go to the help desk and things aren't working, do they identify the bug that you encountered and do they fix it? No, most of the time you get a workaround, right? And the most famous workaround is reboot your computer. Well, why is that? It's because we've created these things, we don't even understand them anymore. It's almost like we're biologists and we're trying to understand some organism. But the strange thing is that we created these things. So if we've created these things and we don't understand them. And there are solutions to that too. So we've gotten into a situation where we're in a hurry. We create software systems. We put those out there. We don't document it because, well, we want it to go faster. But to reverse engineer them later and try and figure out how they work or they don't work takes a lot more effort. So, in that sense, we have entered into what I would call a post literate era. We write a lot on social media and things like that that may not be that important, but we don't write very much and document our data systems and our software. And so that brings us back to the old black box. And black boxes are dangerous things, or at the very least, they're dysfunctional. And when they become very powerful, then they become dangerous too.
Thoughts. And then I guess moving on, how should companies balance innovation in AI with responsible use and long-term security planning?
Balancing innovation. Well, I don't think that we need to be overly cautious. I think we need to be moving full speed ahead, but doing so following best practices for safe AI. And at some point, we'll have to be developing defensive AI as well.
And do you think at the moment there's just too much focus in terms of on innovating as opposed to the security aspect?
No, I don't think so.
Mm.
At this point, AI is not powerful enough to be truly dangerous. So I think that a focus on innovation right now is appropriate, but we have to be looking for that critical moment when AI becomes powerful enough, and when it comes into the realm of physical actuators, that we need to be prepared for it.
Then to end on looking ahead, what expectations should we set for the future of AI security? And I guess who should be accountable?
Well, there's been some suggestion that the government might be responsible for enforcing things. I don't think that you're going to get too far with that, but if there were some violation of AI safety practices, then it would be useful to have a law in the book so that you could prosecute. However, you can't really detect what people are doing. There's billions of lines of code out there. Nobody knows what's in them. If you look at all the synaptic weights and the AI systems, we don't even know what they mean. So a law is certainly not going to take care of all that. But we need to have recognized standards. We need to promote the idea of how to make it safe, and and we need to share defensive AI, right? So if defensive AI is developed by the government, if it's developed by industry, we need to share that and make it readily available.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate your time today, Mark. Been an interesting conversation, and I hope it gives the listeners more insight into AI security. You know, both agree it's a lot should be done, but also I guess see how the involvement in AI goes as well.
All right. It's been my pleasure, Ben. And now I'll be speaking on this issue in New York City in July at the Risk Conference if folks are interested.